Your final task is to complete these 6 questions for a normal distribution with a mean of 50 and a standard deviation of 4. I have an R script here with the questions, and we're going to figure them all out. First, we have to compute the probability of a score less than 55. Because we're looking for a probability, that's your first hint. You have to use p-norm. We're interested in the score of 55, so that is the first value you enter as your quantile. Next comes the mean, then the standard deviation. Finally, you have to think about lower tail true or false. Lower means less, so because we want a value less, that will be true. The probability is about 0.894. Compute the probability of a value greater than 44. Again, we want a probability, so we start with p-norm. The value in the question is 44. The mean is 50. The standard deviation is 4. For lower dot tail, do we want less than? No. This question says greater than. So lower tail will be false. We want greater than that value. The probability is 0.9331928. Compute the probability of a value between 44 and 55. Few ways to do this one, but the fastest way is typically to do the difference between two p-norms with the score of interest. What is important is that the lower tails both need to be set consistently. So in this case, if I want between 44 and 55, that in-between range, I would put lower tail true for both so that I'm finding the intersection of the values. So when I run this, I'll get about 0.83. So whenever you want a between probability, the fastest way to do it is take the larger score, p-norm, minus the smaller score, p-norm, set lower tail true for both. So you're finding the intersection where both conditions are met. The same thing is true for the next one. If we want the probability of a value between, we're using p-norm, start with the bigger value. We're between 52 and 55, so start with the 55, then do the exact same p-norm, same mean standard deviation, but change the second value to the smaller one, 52. That's how you do differences. Subtract the p-norms for the probabilities. It's about 20%. Now, we get to our first question that asks for what value corresponds to the 80th percentile. When you have a probability or a percent and you want to find a value or a score, you have to use q-norm. Inside, first you put the probability, then you put the mean, then you put the standard deviation. By definition, percentiles mean everything less. That means lower tail should be set to true, everything less or lower than that value. So the 80th percentile in a score is about 53.4 points. So if the mean is 50, the 80th percentile would be 53.4. So 80% of people would score less than 53.4. Now, a question that we have not seen before. What value corresponds to the top 10%? The question gives 10%. The mean is 50. The standard deviation is 4. For this one, it does not say we want the percentile. It says we want the top 10%. By definition, percentile means everything less than that amount. So if we want the top 10%, instead of setting lower tail to true like we did previously, now you'll set lower tail to false because we want everything bigger than the value. The top 10% or highest 10%, not less than, greater than. So this would give you the value for the top 10%, 55.13 approximately. Another way you could have done this is if we're looking at the top 10% on the normal curve, if 10% is in the top, that must mean 90% is in the bottom. Or 90% of people scored lower, which is the definition for a percentile. So percentiles are always that amount or lower than. So if 10% are higher, that means 90% are lower. You could have also just calculated the 90th percentile, just like this. It'd give you the exact same answer. So this one is an or. You could do whatever method you feel more comfortable with. So this is a quick run through of 6 practical examples where you're given a mean and standard deviation and you had to calculate various probabilities. Anything that asks for a probability, we use p-norm for. Anything that asks for a percentage or quartile, you have to use q-norm for. Just be careful about your true-false settings for lower tail, thinking about if the question asks you for less than or greater than a certain value or a certain percentage.